Hey everyone, we're here for our next session. We have Brittany. She's the executive director at the Sachs Foundation, and she'll be doing a talk on smart contracts for Bitcoin. And I'll let her take it from here.
Thank you. Yeah, well, thanks for joining. Hopefully, you caught that excellent talk by Manib. If not, you may hear some similar themes. So, as mentioned, I am Brittany. I run the Stacks Foundation. We are the nonprofit organization that's supporting builders on the Stacks blockchain. So, we have a $100 million treasury that we're putting to work to support builders to help imagine what's possible with the Stacks blockchain. So today we'll be talking a little bit about smart contracts for Bitcoin. So just to start, why Bitcoin? So currently, Bitcoin has the largest number of wallets. It's the largest store of value. It has the largest market cap. But what we've seen is there's still a lot of untapped potential in the Bitcoin ecosystem. Many people think of it as the most secure, the longest standing, the most decentralized. All of these are really great qualities. But what's missing in the native functionality of Bitcoin is the ability to do more with smart contracts. So we're helping at the Stacks blockchain to bring some of this Web3 functionality on top of Bitcoin. It started out just as an electronic cash system. People have then seen it more as digital gold. And then we're kind of getting into this Web3 base layer. And this is how Stacks has thought about it. So, how does Stacks work? I know some people have asked, like, oh, is this, isn't it an L1, but how is it built on Bitcoin? So, the way to think about Stacks is that it's a layer that leverages the Bitcoin blockchain by being able to store data in the Bitcoin blockchain, but itself is it Stacks itself is its own blockchain. It uses a unique consensus mechanism called proof of transfer in order to tie settlement back to the Bitcoin layer without necessarily like clogging up the Bitcoin chain, which we know has very limited capacity. But being able to leverage some of that value because you do have that settlement on Bitcoin. But ultimately, what we've seen recently is that a lot of consumers are just using Stacks and they don't even know it. So today, I'm going to go through some of those examples of what has been built on Stacks to date and why that's such a huge benefit, not only for the Web3 ecosystem, but also for Bitcoin. So how we do this, if you're familiar with Ethereum, they have a language called Solidity. Uh, Using Stacks, if you're a developer, you should look into Clarity. We have a very readable language. So every contract that is built on Stacks, you can see exactly what's written in it. So this is a unique language. This is also used by some other projects like Algorand. So if you're interested and you're a builder who's listening in, we also have Clarity University, and I think you'll find that it's very easy to read and also very secure. That was one of the design choices made by the team early on, that the more secure your contracts are, the better it will be for really putting value to work in smart contracts. So one of the other core principles of Stacks blockchain is the ability for Stacks holders to earn BTC. So this is very unique. If you're familiar with other Web3 protocols, many have consensus mechanisms where you hold that native token and then you're able maybe to earn yield in that same token. But in our chain, by participating in POX, proof of transfer, you can actually earn BTC. So this is a chart, kind of how that works. It looks probably a little confusing at first glance, but the key is that in the Bitcoin blockchain, miners use electricity to mine new blocks. With proof of transfer, we are able to leverage that existing electricity by having miners, instead of burning electricity, they burn Bitcoin, and that Bitcoin, a portion of it gets redistributed to folks participating in consensus. So the miner spends Bitcoin to mine the block, they win the block, they earn stacks, the remaining Bitcoin gets transferred out to the stackers. Now, this is really unique for the Stacks ecosystem, and it's really great for anyone who's holding Stacks. These cycles typically last 2 weeks. and based on block height. But we've seen, over almost like $500 million in stacking just in the most recent. If you're interested in learning more, you can go to stacking.club. But you're basically earning about a 10% yield on your stacks holdings in Bitcoin. So this is really great to have more people participate in the Stacks ecosystem, to be hodlers in the Stacks ecosystem. But what's great is it actually creates a really interesting dynamic that we'll see how companies are leveraging this even a step further, being able to tie Bitcoin back into the products that they're building on top. So, what's possible with stacks? If you recently heard the talk by Manib, you know that this is kind of unlimited potential, just like all smart contract platforms. But I think what makes stacks unique, proof of transfer and the use of clarity language, actually opens up some opportunities that we haven't seen anywhere else in Web3. So this is just a quick snapshot of some of the things that have already been built on the Stacks chain since the mainnet launch earlier this year. We have the main categories, DeFi, NFTs, tools, utilities. I'm going to go through some of these in more detail, so you don't need to dive into these just yet. But I think that there's a lot of exciting stuff, including partnerships that are coming up. Excuse me. So let's talk about BTC connected DeFi. So if you're familiar with decentralized finance, this is typically using smart contracts to be able to do things typically seen in finance, like lending, borrowing. But what makes it unique on Stacks is the ability to use DeFi that leverages that stacking ability to do interesting things. So one of the companies that recently went through the Stacks Accelerator is a company called Arcadico. So they have this idea like, what if loans could repay themselves? So building on the Stacks blockchain means that you're able to take out a loan and those earnings by holding onto the amounts actually go towards paying off your loan for you. So this is really unique. A lot of people are like, how is that possible? So I really encourage you to look into Arcadico. But like I said, it's the stacking mechanism that powers the Stacks blockchain. If you're able to get a 10% sort of yield or APY on your holdings, then a portion of that would go to Arcadico as a fee. A portion of that could go to paying off the loan as well, and then you're able to get the loan that you want. So this is just the first of probably many that are thinking about this exact way of leveraging stacking. But I think it's a really cool thing to look into for people who are thinking about DeFi lending and borrowing. Another unique way that builders have taken the Stacks blockchain and kind of put a spin on some of the popular things of today is next generation NFTs. So there's a company called Boom Wallet, and what they've done is they've created NFTs that can actually take advantage of stacking as well. So imagine owning an NFT that actually earns you yield as well. So whether that's earning a yield in Bitcoin, um, whether that's earning a yield in stacks, it's native functionality on the chain. So you can take that NFT and maybe you end up selling it to someone else and they're able to claim that yield. So if you want to play around with this, boom.money, you can go check out your existing NFTs, the great JPEGs that we all love, but you can also try one of their boom boxes, which actually have a yield associated with the NFT too. So by holding those, you can actually earn. Another interesting way to think about next gen NFTs is exemplified in this company called Satoshables. So Satoshables are an NFT project. If you're familiar with some of the NFT projects, these like profile photos. This is a generative art project where it's trying to imagine what Satoshi Nakamoto looks like. So there's 5,000 of these algorithmically generated. But what makes Satoshables unique is that they are actually minted on another chain initially, but now if you transfer them over to Stacks, since that means that they are now settled on the Bitcoin chain because it actually creates a Bitcoin transaction. So you can look back and see which block on Bitcoin that it was actually settled to. The NFTs actually change. So in this photo, you can see these four Nakamotos down below, these Satoshis. They have a Bitcoin logo as part of them, and they have like a colorful background. So Stacks is the way that makes it possible for these to be settled on Bitcoin. And Satoshiable's sort of thought about the next layer is how do we signify that it's actually settled on a Bitcoin chain? Now, if you had one of these and you sent it back to a chain like Ethereum, you would lose sort of the color in the background. But it's just like an interesting way to think about people finding it really important where their JPEGs are saved and maybe the value that's associated with those coming through. So another example is, how are blockchains going to impact governments or real world applications in governance? So one of the examples that we've seen really gain popularity is Miami Coin. So Miami Coin is leveraging proof of transfer. So all of the rewards that are created when mining the Miami token, um, a portion of those are set aside for the city of Miami. So $7 million to date has been, actually, I think it's more than this now, but $7 million has been put in a pot and reserved for Miami. Now, the other Miami coin miners are earning rewards. People who are stacking are earning rewards as well. But this reward, uh, recently, the mayor of Miami actually said that they would actually pick up the bag and take this money and put it to use in Miami. So this is a really interesting bridge of, you know, crowdfunding via the mechanism, the stacking mechanism for the city of Miami, and getting people involved of thinking about how can this money be used. There's been ideas around using it to build a university specific to web development or Web3. There's been ideas about helping homeless populations with it. There's been ideas about paying off the taxes so that residents who live in Miami don't have a tax bill because there's enough money there. So you get kind of a mix of uh, Web3 governance over money, but then governments actually having the resources to put it into action in a large scale way. So if you haven't checked out City Coins, this was sort of the first city to uh, start mining. It's a really interesting way to think about using that proof of transfer mechanism. And that would be hard to replicate on any other chain. Another idea is around digital identity. If you are familiar, you have a wallet that's fast becoming a digital identity in certain ecosystems. But what happens to all of your other stores of value in the digital world? How does that interact? And so at the Stacks Foundation, we've funded through a grant a company called Yolicom, and they're thinking about making it really easy to keep all of that identity in one place, whether it's for government identity like passports to digital identity, even things like NFTs down the future. If those help you gain access places, you could include those in those wallets. So identity is another really interesting place where Bitcoin is such a permanent chain in the Web3 ecosystem today. Having that identity tied to a chain that's not just going to be inaccessible or change too much. So Stacks makes it possible to do that. So these are just a few of the ideas that are out there, but we know that the ecosystem is really just getting started. So at the Stacks Foundation, I'm really excited because part of our role is to help educate the next great Web3 developers. So we have a course called Clarity U. It's free. Our next cohort is coming up. You can get involved, pick up some clarity. We already have hundreds of developers going through the first program. We of the Stacks blockchain. So whenever there's upcoming changes. We help facilitate the governance process. The governance is actually run by the community. So if you're interested in contributing in that way, you can get involved there. And then another major way is just through our grants funding. We have over $100 million in our Stacks treasury. That treasury is dedicated to helping builders create the future with the Stacks blockchain. And so you can apply for funding through our grants program, because we see that there's so much value that can be created. Right now, we're seeing a lot of it happen in Ethereum, but we think that there's so much potential that's untapped in Bitcoin, and we can make that possible through the Stacks chain. And sort of on a cheeky note, I saw this tweet and I thought it was kind of funny in the thought of, Ethereum devs working on what is basically a Bitcoin test net. And everything that you see that's built today in these other Web3 platforms will be built on Bitcoin. We're strong believers in like a multi-chain world. We think that's the way that you can get the security and the scale and the innovative new ways of doing that, like proof of transfer. But we do think that there are a lot of things that exist on Web3 today that once you're able to build them on Bitcoin, it will just unlock a ton of potential. So we hope that you are excited and that you want to join us on building the future of Bitcoin on Stacks. So as I mentioned, our grants program, we've since earlier this year, we've already had close to $500,000 of grants awarded through our grants program. It's rapidly growing, so I think that number will quickly accelerate. But if you go to stacks.org/grants, you can apply for a grant. You can see all of the existing grants funded to date. These typically start in small sizes, like $2,500 up to $100,000. And these grants are a great way to get started, even if it's just writing a small smart contract or it's thinking about infrastructure that the ecosystem could use. So we really hope that you get involved with that. And then another program that's recently we had our first cohort was the Stacks Accelerator. So, they're inviting people who want to build the next internet to get involved. The Stacks Accelerator is looking for companies that want to solve problems. They have founders who have previous experience. It doesn't have to be Web3, it could be many places of building things. They are really looking to leverage the innovative qualities of Stacks to bring these smart contracts to Bitcoin. And they're a great team. So if you're interested in this, the Stacks Accelerator is the place to go for that. This was a great quote, actually, from one of the advisors to the Stacks Accelerator, that the teams through the accelerator are pioneering a generation of applications and services anchored to Bitcoin, expanding what's previously thought possible in the network. I think where we stand in Web3 today and where we will be 6 months or even a year from now, it's going to be a completely different world. If you've been in the ecosystem for a long time, you've already seen that over the past few years, how quickly things move. So we hope that you join us in building these things. As I mentioned some of the teams earlier, these are some of the great teams that already went through the accelerator. They're doing really innovative things with DeFi and with decentralized storage, decentralized identity. So no matter what your idea is, I think there could be a place for you in the Stacks ecosystem. So thank you for joining this conversation today. Please find me on Twitter. My handle is down below. Find stacks.org, that's our website, and we're also stacks.org on Twitter. We'd love to have you involved in building the future of Web3, especially on Bitcoin. Thank you.
Awesome. This was great. Do you have any final thoughts or anything you want to add?
I was just looking through the comments here. Yeah, it looks like there's some love for Miami coin. It looks like it's over 8 million already. Yeah, it's hard to keep track. There's ways to get involved in Miami coin too, even if you don't live in Miami. You could be a miner in Miami coin. You could be a stacker if you're holding Miami coin. I know that Miami coin is currently available on OKCoin. So there are ways to be involved, even if you aren't a resident of Miami. So thanks for the love there. We also have recently published a post, actually my colleague Jude, about app chains. So, Miami coin is taking advantage of what we call proof of transfer light. So it's using that mechanism of like stacking and proof of transfer. But app chains actually make it even more specific. So if you wanted to launch a specific coin in a similar way that Stacks is built on Bitcoin, you could build your token on top of Stacks and have the mining and the stacking mechanism already built in. That is now sort of published paper. We're looking for more people to contribute. I think we'll see some really interesting things once you think about taking a token for specific communities or specific purposes and applying it directly. Like I said, Miami coin is kind of like in some ways, an early generation of what that could look like. So yeah, I would love to have more ideas from folks here and more people involved. We also have a great Discord community. So if you're new to this and want just more questions answered, please come check it out. Stacks.org. You should be able to navigate to all of our different avenues, whichever one you prefer. Yeah. Great. Well, thank you so much for having me. If there aren't any other questions, I'll let everyone continue to check out this great summit today.
Thanks, Brittany. We're going to transition to next session now.
Fantastic.